Okay, go ahead. And if you, I don't even know if you, I didn't mean to interrupt your story. You may not even want to talk about that personal information, but
What, ice baths? Well,
yeah.
magnesium baths, trigger point
Well,
there.
yeah, no, yeah. Let's talk about that because I, um, I was practicing some of that thermal therapy
Cold
thing.
thermogenesis? Yeah, you got in on that? You got some
Kind
CTX?
of. I had a really cold run. Does that count?
Yeah, it does actually a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, usually, like, I'll put a long sleeve on, but today I didn't, and I was pretty cold, man. So
Were
I
you
thought of
shivering?
you like for almost a mile. I thought Jared would be proud of me right now because here I
I
am
would.
out running in the cold.
Yeah. See, they've got these things called cool fat burners where you can, I don't remember all the science behind it, but it has to do with brown fat converting white fat into heat, So if you can get your neck and your shoulders and some areas of your back or chest, cold enough, you can burn a lot of fat during that. You could do the same thing outside, though. If you can get your body temperature down, you can shiver. You can get your body to release a bunch of irisin and boost your metabolism by 300 to 400%. So I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for doing it on accident, even if
Yeah, it was totally an accident, but I still felt like I was having some kind of a victory.
I
So
took an ice bath this weekend. Reason why Emily brought that up is because I Instagrammed part of it, and so I like to do
I hope it was just the ice in the bathtub part.
yeah. It was just my face.
Oh, okay.
My face. I'm not, it's not that kind of show on Instagram, but anyway, that's the kind of stuff I put on Instagram just because it's fun. But yeah, I did some serious CT this weekend. Feeling good though, getting better.
No. Well, yeah, I'm gonna take another run tomorrow, but I'm not in control of what the temperature is, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do whatever's going on.
I would recommend doing it shirtless for maximum benefits.
Shirtless? Yeah, I have not.
If you want to be hardcore, do some snow angels. Every 15 minutes, drop to a snow angel.
Well, there's no snow. All the snow is gone up here, but there is some cold creeks. So,
well,
anyway,
Emily,
hey, what's weird?
Thanks for being a part of just another regular, normal introduction to the show where we don't talk about who the guest is. We've given no valuable information whatsoever, and our guest is listening.
Guys. Emily, 1922. What's your number? Is that correct?
1922.
Yeah. Emily, 1922 is along for the ride tonight. So I met her at the end of last summer up in Cleveland, Ohio, but I also met her a couple weeks ago down in San Diego. Jared, you met her for the first time.
Yeah, we hung out on the Santa Monica Pier together.
Yeah, I mean, what did you think? Is she all right?
She was okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. But before we get into that, another thing I want to mention is I keep smelling something that smells good, and I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's me, because I've been using that new deodorant that you've been using.
Oh, did you go deep with like $10 deodorant, bro? Or are you getting the cheaper version?
Well, I got it on sale. It was like $7.24, but
that's a good deal. That's bargain shopping for that deodorant, dude.
Yeah. I found a store here that carries it. So
which scent did you get?
Charcoal something.
Just the magnesium charcoal?
Yeah.
Legit. Props, bro.
I want to pick one out for my wife, but I didn't know what she would like, so I thought I better not because it's so expensive. I'll let her pick her own scent, right?
She can have the aluminum version.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I there was like a lime one that I thought was pretty good, but anyway, I got traffic going through the back here. Emily, okay, I can't remember this, but I wanted to ask you. I know that your husband was a principal. Did you have any? I just can't remember. You probably mentioned in your book. What was your background? Did you work in the education or?
I was basically a decorator for about 10 or 15 years, depending on how you count it. I've always done some type of crafting where I make things. I make signs. I redo furniture. And,
okay, so for some reason I was thinking that you were like a teacher, but I don't know where I got that, but it was probably because your husband is a principal and also an amazing cook who makes great tacos. By the way, I have to say that because when I was there a couple weeks ago, he made some homemade tacos, and I think it was like especially for me, which was even better, and it was delicious. I really had to show some self-control to not act like a moron and eat more than I should, which is what I usually do, is overeat. But it was amazing. And these tacos, they had like a smorgasbord buffet of things that you could put on. And I just started putting stuff on. I was like, oh my goodness, there's more stuff to put on. And I was like, they had like this round big bowl, and it was just out of control.
With little sections.
Yeah.
So,
but no, anyway, so I was, my son and I were out walking the dog tonight, and he was just talking about some of the, I wouldn't call him problems. He's not a problem child, or he doesn't get in a lot of trouble, but he gets in trouble for not getting his homework in on time. And he was telling me some of the stuff that they were doing, just kind of like he would have to go out in the hall. And I was just trying to give him advice. I'm like, well, okay, son, let's get your homework done so you don't have to go out in the hall, and miss the movie. He's like, well, I already saw that movie, and it was just kind of humorous to me. And then I said, well, you want to be in the room still, even if you already saw it. You want to be in the room with your friends watching the movie. He's like, actually, all my friends were in the hall too. So anyway, he asked me if I ever got in trouble in school. And I told him a few stories, but one of them was we were outside watching a fight because recess was over and they called everybody in. Then a fight broke out, and I was watching I wasn't the only one, but there was a bunch of us watching this fight, and we all got what was called whacked. So, Jared, I don't know if you're old enough to remember what was called corporal punishment in school, but maybe it lasted a little bit longer down in Texas than it did in Ohio. But they used to paddle us. Did you ever get paddled or get in trouble?
No, I just barely missed that. They just send everybody to a disciplinary school. That's anybody that got in trouble went to discipline school.
Dude, okay. So, but I got to tell this story because this is true. So one time I got in trouble for getting in a fight with a kid. No big deal. It's not like I was always scrapping in a gang or something. That's not what it was. But I got in a little fight with a kid, and they paddled me. And I was like, that hurt. It hurt a lot. I'm not going to fight anymore. So later on that week, somebody tried to start a fight with me, and I was like, I'm not fighting, dude. I'm not fighting. You can hit me, whatever. I'm not getting paddled again. Teacher came in, saw us. He's like, okay, you two out in the hall, you're getting paddled. I was like, you're not paddling me. I wasn't fighting this time. And she's like, I walked in and saw you two fighting. I'm like, no, you saw him attacking me. You did not see me fighting back. Anyway, it was a whole big deal. I was like, you're going to call my mom this time because you are not going to paddle me again. But, I mean, the teacher, God bless them, they were like judge, jury, and executioner. And, I mean, I'm sure they served a lot of justice, but there was also some injustice, right? Anyway, I wouldn't want their job, but that's my story. And it just kind of came up tonight as Gav and I were walking the dog. But so, Jared, could you do me a favor and hold up Emily's book for us? Because I started this book.
Hold on right there. All right. Go ahead.
I forgot to bring a book with me to read. And then, God bless Emily, she gave me this book, and I got to read it on the way back. I got on the plane. And I'll be honest, I opened up the book, and I started reading it, and I read a little bit of it, and I was just like, man, I don't want to read any more of this. I really didn't. I was just like, this is too heavy for me, And I'm going to let you, Emily, talk about this in a minute, but this is a sad story about events that have taken place in your life over the last 10 years. And I read the beginning of the book, maybe 20, 30 pages, and I put it down. I was like, I'm not going to finish that. And then I took a nap and I got back up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to read it. And I read, and I made it all the way through and I finished it yesterday morning. And I do highly recommend the book. But what you lived, and I guess I want to back up again because we met last summer just very briefly up in Cleveland. And I didn't know you from anybody else. And you just came up and said hi. And there was lots of people that, that were waiting to pray with me and stuff. And then we connected through Facebook and email, afterwards. And you bought a copy of the movie and you supported us and that sort of thing. And then you helped us. You helped us organize some stuff for the new film and everything. But I knew that part of you, but I didn't know this part of you. I didn't know this story. And now I know this whole history and I know about where you lived and I just know about the tragedy and stuff. So it's just kind of weird because a lot of people that watch this show, they know stories about Jared and I. We tell these stories, right? And we get people that send us an email or talk to us and meet us and be like, oh, remember when you did this? We're like, how do you know when we did this? We forget that we tell these stories, right? So now it's just kind of the same thing for Emily. And I know these, the personal stories of your life, but where do you want to start at, Emily? We're kind of blabbing tonight and not giving you much of a chance to jump in there, but I want to give you just kind of how do you want to set this up? What is your book about first?
It's the experience of parents losing their child unexpectedly with no warning. And how do you deal with that? That's not something that any parent, hopefully, happen in their life, that they wake up one day and they go to bed that night without their child. And I take you through a grieving process. I literally say, I hold your hand as we walk into something that nobody wants to walk into. And let me take you there so I can show you that we can walk together out of this.
I felt like I was just really experiencing, obviously you can't, but when you're reading this, you think of your own kids, and I'm just like, because I know you, I felt like it was just like a little bit more, it was difficult, but again, I don't want to give away the whole book, but I do want you to just share what happened with your son Tim, but kind of give us a background. Where what was your life like? Because what I got from the book is you guys had, like, dare I say normal, but you just had like the perfect life growing up.
On
2
the
kids.
outside, and yeah. On the outside, we had I'll start from the beginning. I was born in Hawaii and came to San Diego. Everything looked decent on the outside. I was the only child, and so I always had a pretty decent car to drive. I had a 56 Chevy and a 1966 white Cadillac at my disposal, and 2 decent parents, seemingly. I was 19. I was a busker, met at the Navy Chiefs Club in San Diego, and we were married a year later. And we were pregnant 18 months later, and then another 9 months we were pregnant with Tim. Lots of dysfunction. We weren't following the Lord at that time at all, though I always believed. I believed since I was at least 9, if not earlier, and but we definitely weren't walking with him at that point. And they got to the dip running a daycare so I could stay home with them, and worked real hard at being a mom. I mean, that was my focus, and it's surprising because I didn't have any siblings to glean on, and my mother and I we were close, but there was some distance there, and which I guess is an oxymoron to say that, but there was some strife. And so the kids go through school, they do really well. They're usually straight A students. they ended up being valedictorians. Leanne went to a university in Southern California, a really nice one, and our son got almost a full ride at Long Beach State University in California. And then I and they got back on making. They went to all it, and I was in BSF, which was a very structured Bible study fellowship. It was International Bible, still is. I was a leader in that. We were leaders. We went to church, so I thought we were gonna, break. Husband had gone through a lot when he was a child, and then our daughter came out when, I think right after college. I think she was 22, 23, and claims that she lives a gay lifestyle, and everything just really fell apart. But yet I had faith, like, okay, what can I do? Just pray about it and just give it to the Lord and all this stuff that people will tell you because they really have no idea what to tell you, especially in the Christian community. But I wanted more. So I did some spiritual work, had a deliverance done, and we just kept plugging away, and things were actually getting better. We were all together Mother's Day 2010, and we had a really good time. And when my son walked away from me, I felt the Lord impress upon me that was the last time I was going to see him. And on September 1st, he called me, and he was a little shaky. It was 8:30 in the morning. And I said, well, what's wrong? And he said, well, just witness.
Hey, hold on a second, Emily.
What?
No, everything's fine. It's just a little bit glitchy. And I want to kind of back up there because I remember when you told me that when I was at your house it was Mother's Day, okay? And you felt that when you watched him walk away, you felt the Lord press upon you that was going to be the last time that you saw him. Now, did you put that in the book? Because if you did, I missed it, but I do remember you saying it at the house.
No, I didn't, because it sounds like, I get to know things, and that kind of thing. And I know my target audience. I was very cognizant of what my daughter might think. If you felt like that, why didn't you tell him, or warn us, or, that kind of stuff. But hindsight's always 20/20. And lots of times we have feelings that just go away, but this one didn't.
No, and I can identify with that, because a lot of times the Lord will tell you something and you may not necessarily, this sounds kind of bad, but you may not believe him, or you may not know if it's the Lord or not.
Right. Oh,
it could be just what you had for lunch. I don't know. But I definitely had those experiences where I'm like, okay, this is pretty intense here, but you don't know. And then you come to find out, the proof is in the pudding later on. So, okay.
Exactly.
And I remembered that. I remembered you telling me that, and I didn't see it in the book. So I wanted to ask you about that, and I'm glad you cleared that up. So, okay.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Go ahead and get into the day that Tim called you.
Hey, real quick, Emily. It seems like Tom and our connection seems to be fine. Is your internet sometimes slow? Does it kind of glitch out sometimes on you where you're at?
Sometimes, but I never know if it's you guys or me. I just hear some buffering, but not horribly so.
Okay. What we might do is have you hit your camera button up at the top just to mute the picture, and it might help with the bandwidth up there, so that what you say is crystal clear, because your content's more important right now.
All I have is a microphone and a camera that can turn around, so I don't want to hit that. Up
on the Google, it's in the Google Hangouts. It's in the actual window that you're looking in. If you look up, there's a selection menu. You'll have a person with a plus sign, a microphone, and then a camera. Does that make sense? You'll have to use your mouse.
Oh, I'm on my iPad.
Yeah, it should still be
okay.
there. It should still be there on your iPad. If you tap the screen, you should have a menu that pops up within that Google Hangouts page. Is it not popping up?
My daughter would be so embarrassed right now. Let's
That's
see.
okay.
Options,
No, it's
people.
okay. We'll just do it. It works on my phone and iPads and stuff. You just tap the screen usually within that Google Hangouts window, and you'll have a selection bar. You just tap on the camera to pretty much turn your camera off, and then your voice comes through clear most of the time. But if you can't find it, it's no big deal.
Yeah, we're good.
There you go.
We're good.
Perfect.
If
You did it.
not too bad. Oh, there we go. She's got it. Yes.
Okay. I just thought that wouldn't make sense, but you're right. It makes sense. So, okay. As long as you hear my voice, that's good.
Yes.
So September 1st, he's calling me and he's witnessed this hit and run car accident where a woman was killed in a crosswalk. He saw the guy flee the scene and he took off after him, chased him through the streets of San Francisco about 20 minutes with his iPhone on his shoulder, going up and down those hills with a stick shift. And he ended up getting a partial license plate. And so he gave that to the authorities. He went back to the scene of the crime and he heard DOA. She actually wasn't gone at that point, but she ended up dying later in surgery. But I said, okay, Lord, tell me what to say, because they didn't want to hear about the Lord at this point. They just thought Mom was nuts. So he gave me 3 things to say, I believe. And that was that you were at the right place at the right time. You have the gifts just like your dad. And 2, you gave honor to a woman's life you didn't even know. And the easiest one, of course, was life is fragile. We absolutely never know when our time is up. And that was a Wednesday morning. He went to bed Friday after midnight and did not wake up.
So one of the last events, the biggest last event, that took place in his life was this just horrific hit and run accident that he saw. And, it's almost like a default or automatic, he calls his mom for advice or for comfort.
Yeah.
And, you got to comfort him in that moment. Then a couple days later, I guess maybe it's your daughter who calls you and says that I can't remember exactly how it went down, but they're looking for Tim. How did that happen?
Well, I had the Lord told me Monday night that Tim was no longer of this world. And I literally put it out of my head, or he took it out of my head, because I didn't think about it until the next day when she called. And she said, Mom, Tim is missing. I couldn't put it in the book, but I said, oh, crap. They wouldn't let me because it's a Christian company. But that's really what I said. And she said immediately, she goes, what'd you hear? And I said, nothing. And I couldn't lie about it. So I ended up telling her. And I said, it's your job to go find him, because she worked right there where they all lived and worked pretty close together. And so we were basically back and forth with phone calls for probably a good hour and a half trying to find him. And then I think it was Bill that told her, you need to go to the apartment. And she brought a friend with her, and she had the horror of finding her baby brother in his bed dead.
So and I'm just kind of walking you through this because this is all fresh on my mind. I just read this book, and you decide what you want to tell, because I want people to read the book. The book
right
is powerful. And since we're talking about that, how do they get a hold of the book?
Oh, Amazon. Very, very
Okay.
easy. Just Amazon's the easiest way.
And I don't have my copy here because my mom was over visiting, and I gave it to her, and I said, you got to read this book. I said, this lady is a friend of mine, and this is what it's about. I said, it's sad, but it's got a good ending. I said, take this. I said, it's easy to read, 120 pages. So she took it. But it's called The Most Incredible Witness. Jared will hold it up again.
Yeah, here. We lock my. Well,
I have it
see
too,
right?
but there's
Yeah,
my
That's
baby.
okay. I'll show it.
You can switch your screen on back anytime, Emily. That just kind of
Sure.
helps.
It's just, I have to do that with myself sometimes, Emily, if you're getting in a role, because you don't want it to be, your story's so interesting. We don't want it to be choppy where it doesn't make sense to somebody. So your voice is coming through a lot more clear at the moment than it was. So this is probably the way to do it for right now.
Awesome.
So, okay, well, go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead.
I don't want to obviously give away the incredible part, but he ends up in his last hours of his life being not only witness to this woman's accident, but a witness for the Lord. And it's truly incredible. And when it all came down on September 22nd, I knew then this is just too good to share, you know, and it really helped with the grieving process to know, man, he knew everything that was going to happen. You know, Tim had to be at that crosswalk at that exact moment. And the woman that was killed, she was there at that exact moment. I mean, yes, it's a horrific thing, obviously, that happened, but just all of the timing. And I'd really like to think that, you know, she got to know that her life mattered in this way, that she'd be really happy about that. I don't know that she'd volunteer to go, because that's, you know, a lot to ask of anybody, but especially in such a way. But it's just really this beautiful love story of how, even though Tim left God, thought he left God and was running away from him, and God chased him. And I say in the book, or at the back page, it's like Jesus, you know, gotta back up, as the man was driving, he had Tim in his rearview window going, why is this guy chasing me? You know, I just want to get out of here. I just killed the woman, or, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And then, but maybe Jesus was in Tim's rearview mirror. I'm getting you. I'm going to give you that chance. I'm going to give you that chance to have that repentant heart. And he did. So it really is a beautiful story. And we didn't find this all out until September 22nd. And it's just really incredible. You know, it gave me a lot of hope and faith with our daughter.
Well, and I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I remember when we were driving to Santa Monica, you kind of went into how amazing 22 has been in your life. And I don't know if you want to talk about it, but your name is Emily 1922 on the internet. And this might be a good place for you to talk about 1922.
Okay. I was born on December 22nd. I met my husband when I was 19. We got married a year later. I had my daughter when I was 22. She was due on February 22nd, born on the 19th. Tim was 18 months later to the day, August 19th. Our daughter's sports number was 22, and she was obsessed with it. And man, I found another one too the other day too, but I didn't write it down. It's somewhere. And my grandmother was buried on January 22nd of 2010. Tim's birthday rolled around that year. 19 days later, he was found dead. He was buried on September 19th. We found out everything on September 22nd. And it's a 3-day thing too. You know, like Lazarus was raised in 3 days. I found that kind of interesting because we got all this information on September 22nd. Then at the 4-year mark of his death, I got the word to start the book, and I knew that it probably would end up on his birthday. So, but it still was like 10 months away or something, or 11 months away. So I didn't worry much about it. And I surely didn't stall writing because of that. But bottom line is, it was ready to go on August 17th. And I thought, man, should I hold it, you know, for 2 days, or should I just trust God and not try? I mean, because I'm not a numerologist. This numbers just keep showing up.
Right. Well, I'm glad you just said that. You're not a numerologist. We're not either. But it's fascinating, right? Because we have all of these, we won't call them coincidences, but I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
No, that's fine. No, I'm glad you did, because I want to preface that. I'm definitely not, that's just proof. I'm not running my life according to these numbers. And so anyway, so I sent the book off not knowing it takes 2 days to publish. And so his book ended up being published on his birthday, August 19th. And I don't celebrate people's, birthdays that have gone before us. That's kind of odd to me. But anyway, but still it's kind of cool. And the coolest part is that he would have been 33 and I had Freemasonry in my background. So I'm one of those SRA survivors that you help. So I just think it's interesting. It's just interesting. And then, so I write this book and my daughter runs these seminars for lesbians. And there's this woman at the seminar. And a year ago, I got to I met her on September 22nd. And then I got to hand her my book. And the woman was unfortunately Edie Windsor, the woman that made gay marriage legal in the whole country, read my book and loved it. So that's pretty cool. I'm sorry that she passed away, though. In fact, I just wrote a little blog post on my experience with her. She was actually extremely warm and vivacious. And I told her this is a Christian book, a religious book. And she said, that's who you are. You don't have to apologize for that. And I thought that was very nice of her. And then I get this text from this guy, who wants to interview me on February 19th, which is my daughter's birthday. And I didn't tell Tom that, these numbers.
Yeah, right. Because my son's birthday is February 20th.
Yeah.
Day after. So, yeah, anyway.
It's just weird. I don't know. It could be a certain Bible verse is what I'm thinking, but I really don't know. I think only time will tell.
Right.
Well, so I've heard from a lot of people, and this is why it's interesting to me, because like you said, you're not a numerologist, neither am I, and nobody's putting special power in the numbers. But sometimes God has his own unique way of communicating to us or showing us that an event in our life is special. And I've had that before with something that it gets our attention with sometimes symbolically. And for some people, different numbers mean different things to them. And when they see a pattern with numbers, it indicates some sort of intelligence. And I'm getting some sort of loop feedback here. I don't know where it's coming from, but anyway, so in your case, it doesn't sound demonic or anything. I mean, it could be, depending on what it is and where it's coming from. I mean, it's worth questioning, but in your case, it really just seems like there was a pattern there and you notice the pattern, you realize there's something special about this. And so to me, I don't think there's anything sinister about it. I think it's really a cool part of the story.
I think so too. I think so. That's why I named the chapter September 19th and then the next chapter September 22nd, just to give it validity, because I was really stoked when I thought the event happened the day before. I was just didn't have all the days in order, and when I was writing the book, something didn't make sense. So I called the daughter of the woman that was killed, and she's like, "Oh no, this is it. And it was like a light bulb. Like, oh my gosh, it's the third day. All of these 1922s are still lining up, and maybe it's about this. I think could be more, but again, I don't get to know until it happens.
Right.
So.
It's fascinating. I don't know what the answer is, but hey,
no.
Before we go any further, could you plug your blog?
Oh,
that
absolutely.
Way people can find it.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of a name at the time. And when I wrote the book, before I wrote the book, I thought, or said, I'm on enough social media. I do not want, no way. Then when I wrote the book and the publishers are like, yeah, you need to do a blog. So I said, okay. So I just kind of started out slow and it's still slow, but anyway, it's a lot of fun. It's EmilyLPittsford.com. But if you just Google Emily Pittsford, because there's only one of me, it'll come up.
Okay. Emily Pittsford.
And they're short, nice little stories.
Yeah, and you do a lot of writing on there, and you touched on it a little bit of what some of your writing is about concerning your daughter coming out. And that was one of the reasons, the main reason really, that I wanted to interview you when I came to San Diego, is to kind of get that story and get that Christian response. And we're definitely going to have you on to talk about that in more detail, later on, closer to the release of what we're working on. But what, just give us a Reader's Digest version of, I know that's a crazy task, but how do you respond? Because it could be anything. It could be somebody, you know, a child coming out of the closet, or it could be, you know, just dealing with any kind of son or daughter who is a prodigal. Any advice for anyone out there listening? Because I know we got tons of people that will be able to relate with what you have to say.
Oh, sure. My first piece of advice is, if it's fresh, take some time to rest and heal and kind of take your breath. Please be careful about throwing a really tempting. Trust me, it's really tempting. You want to, you know, give them a Bible with things highlighted, but it's not going to work. So after that, after you take some time and maybe find a good counselor and a few things, listen. The best thing that you can do is listen to why they're in pain, because there's pain there. Sin doesn't just happen. We've all heard these testimonies in church, and how many of them do not start with, you know, my mother did this and my father did that, right? We're the parents. We're those people now, at least in my age group, you know. And so it's really not a bad idea to take a step back and go, okay, maybe because of this and this and this, there's some pain there. This and this over here, there's some pain over here. And not to sit and say it's all our faults, but what if backing the truck up could help? A couple years ago, I was literally in a car accident. I parked into a parking space, and you know how fun it is to like park in the next space in front of you? I just think that's the coolest thing, right? Because I don't have to back up. So I got into the store, did my shopping, got outside, got in the car, and forgot I had cramped my wheels really, really bad. So I pulled out right across this lady's front fender. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So thankfully she wasn't too long. And she came out and she looked at the car. She realized what had happened, and she wasn't real happy, but she insisted that the tow truck come. So we waited for about an hour. And I'm thinking this like magically thing, you know, something he's going to tell us is just going to be astoundingly amazing. Like he's going to pick the car up and put it over. I don't know. He goes, put your car in reverse and back up. Simple, right? Get out of the accident, and then you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to go find, you know, a good body shop. In fact, I still have the dent there. I haven't done that yet. But anyway, that's kind of like what parenting is sometimes. Back up, see what damage has been done, acknowledge it, because if you don't acknowledge their pain, it's only going to get worse. When you acknowledge somebody's pain, it's they can vent it out. It's like when Tim died and people would try to console. It wasn't even consoling. They didn't know what to say, and I understand that, but sometimes it's just, quite frankly, lame. You know, like, you know, God gives you what you can handle. Thanks. That's really going to help me tonight. But anyway, so it's kind of like that. You can let them bleed a little.
Emily, I think that's so key. I'm a horrible consoler. I don't know what to say. I'm awkward. I feel like I'm very selfish at those times because I don't want to be around the person who's grieving. And because I get very empathetic, and I'm just like, man, it kills me, you know, to see somebody else hurting. And that person might need me at that time, you know, and you know, most of the time, you know, I push through and I get there and I show up, but I don't like it. And it just really freaks me out. But you said some things in the book about when you don't know what to say, and we're kind of jumping around here, but that's okay because I wanted to cover this too, because these things are key. This is really good advice. And that's what I love about this book You really
Thank
just kind of helped me with some stuff in here, and I was just like, I mean, just the other night on Thursday night, I had to go to calling hours for a friend, a good friend of this show whose wife passed away, and it killed me. And I found out about it. We found out about it when we were in LA, and I just couldn't quit thinking about him. And oh man, I just didn't know what to say. I went up there and hugged him and told him I loved him, and just told him I was there for him. And I just don't even want to think about it right now. But it's difficult in those situations, and I know there's some other people out there like me who would rather avoid it. Kind of tell them what you said in the book about this.
I read this in an article, way before Pinterest and online. We would read magazines and stuff, and it said, when you don't know what to say to somebody that's just lost somebody, and I thought this was so smart. He said, say, I wish I knew what to say. I wish I could have the words to help you, because trust me, truthfully, words are the worst thing sometimes because they get in the way, And so if you just at least acknowledge the pain, that person can bleed a little. And you don't really have to do much. You just stand there and watch and hold them physically or mentally and spiritually, and just allow them to bleed. Because bleeding needs to take place. We think that they can just give it to God overnight and forgive that person and do this and do that. And it's not always the case. It is a process, like they say. I mean, they gave the Jews or the Israelites 30 days to grieve. I mean, I don't know if that's biblical, but I know that God grieved when he saw the state of the world as during the days of Noah. He grieved.
Well, and the Bible says to laugh with those who are laughing and to mourn with those who are mourning. That's great advice right there. We don't laugh with those who are mourning or mourn with those who are laughing. It seems so, it's like one of those duh things, but it's really powerful advice. It really is.
Well, there's one passage in Scripture that I find, usually it's those that are closest to us and our loved ones who feel like they have to give us words of hope and encouragement in those times. And oftentimes those words, no matter what they are, just bring frustration to us, right? Because you're right. You're feeling pain. Nothing that you're saying is going to help with my pain. It's just like, I'm going to be in pain. Sometimes people just like you said, acknowledging the pain is all you can do. Trying to make it better, it just makes it worse. But, when you look at the story of Job, you had a lot of people that spoke words without knowledge. They tried to give him some sort of consolation and only aided in his frustration. But in Job 13, right, at the end, in Job 13, I think verse 15, he says, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. And that's essentially what it came down to. In the midst of the grief and the suffering and all that Job had lost, it was, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. And I found that, powerful believers that undergo suffering, there's nothing you can say to make the suffering go away. But there's always that moment where it's just like, I am bleeding out, but at least I have Christ in the midst of this, and that's really all that's the only peace that you can have in those moments.
Right. And I had that moment. I was driving home. We were driving home from burying him on September 19th. And my thoughts were just going absolutely crazy. Those globes, I wanted to write it in there, but it's too much information. But those globes are the little things that go in it, and the lights, we have them at the Balboa Park in San Diego anyway. But that's what my brain felt like. It's like just thoughts all over the place of like, did he do it? Did he not do it? How did was he in so much pain and I didn't see it? I mean, it was a mess. And I realized it came down to one thing. Do I trust God with my children? That was it. I wasn't over grieving, but that's all it comes down to.
And that's the thing that's been challenging me and haunting me since I read this book. And I don't know what to say about that, because it just puts me on the spot, because I have kids that are prodigals, and I spend a lot of time praying for them, and I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what to do about them. And what you said there, do I trust God with my kids? And I just got to keep putting it back. putting them back in his hands. If I take them out, Lord, I repent, Lord, you take them. You know what you're doing. You love them. You're in control. You can see the things I can't see. So, wow. Wow.
It's a heavy subject. I mean, and for a lot of people, I think, yeah, it's definitely a heavy subject. And one that, for instance, I read a book not too long ago called Surprised by Suffering, which, if we started getting into the book, it just sound like I'm trying to give all the answers for how we deal with suffering, which I'm not. I haven't suffered a fraction of what you suffered with the loss of your kid, but that is something that comes up frequently. It's just like what is the biblical way of dealing with suffering? As fallen creatures in this world, what is it we should expect? And how is it that we're supposed to cope with it? And I do believe that the scriptures have. I don't understand how people without Christ endure suffering. It's why suicide. See, this is what's interesting. Suicide seems to be on the rise. Increasingly, because the suffering that people undergo seems to be they seem to deem it suffering without purpose, right? And what's different about your story is you suffered, but you didn't associate your suffering with hopelessness and without purpose. You realized very quickly there was some sort of divine fingerprint on this. And even though you suffered, you trusted in the one that has held you and given you the peace that surpasses all understanding. And that's what's so sad. See, your story is a beautiful story of not something that anybody would ask to take upon themselves, but it's a perfect example of how in life, all of us at some point in time are going to suffer loss. And how do we deal with it? Is it without purpose? Is that suffering without purpose? Does it lead to hopelessness? And oftentimes when it leads to hope, when a person, regards it as hopeless, it leads to very drastic things in their life. But you've turned it around and it's turned into a book. It's turned into, I haven't read the book, obviously, and I told you that. Tom's the only one that's read it. But talking to you, it's become a massive testimony that has done something magnificent for the kingdom.
Thank you. My honor, really.
Yeah. Another thing I got from the book, and it kind of gave me a little bit of a relief, is I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. I'm like, writing this book is sort of a therapy for Emily. And that made me feel good. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get through this, because you're introduced to this horrific situation. And then when I figured that out, I'm like, okay, I can make it through here, because I know that, it doesn't matter if I read it or not, but she wrote it. So, and I want to see her through to the end, to see this, that's it was part of your therapy. Am I right? I mean, I was going to ask you that question, but.
Totally. Yeah. People sometimes will ask me what was the hardest part, and it was reliving the funeral scene over and over and over again, because I'm anal. So when I would pick up the book to write, I would read from the beginning to whatever I was at, and which was helpful to, maybe edit or whatever. But yeah, I would read it over a lot and trying to get all the words right. And then knowing that my daughter had to watch that body bag go down the stairs just tore me. Either for her was gone. I was there, but at that point I thought he had killed himself. So I was pretty much hysterical. Like I said, in the book, I wanted to throw up a gut kind of pain. And
we glitched out for just a second. I don't want to breeze over that. You mentioned your daughter watched your son being carried down the stairs in a body bag, and you thought that he had committed suicide?
In the beginning, I didn't know what could have happened. I thought, being that he just witnessed this horrible event, that maybe that just put him over the edge, or, and my first experience of death was my godfather killed himself. He went in a garage with his car and turned on the engine and closed the garage door, and so that was my first experience. So I just went there, for that half hour, whatever. And then bless my best friend's heart, she got up from the dining room table that I sit at right now, and she called Leanne and sat down and said, Emily, there's a very good possibility it was not suicide. And then about 80% grief left me. I didn't grieve after, but that just seemed so much worse, so much more than I could have ever handled. Because I tend to be a very introspective person. You know, Monday morning quarterback is my favorite thing to do with friends. So, but that's not what happened. So, but I didn't know at the time.
Right. And
Yeah,
it makes sense because there was you didn't know that there was a health situation, at all. And you didn't know any of the other details, but you're just like, okay, he just witnessed this horrible thing, and maybe he took it harder than I thought. But
right, he's 28 years old, and we had a dear friend that kept saying, "You need to tell him to go to see a psychiatrist." I'm like, I don't do that with my adult children. I don't tell them what to do. So I was kind of feeling guilty, like, oh, I should have got him in. I should, you shoulda, woulda, couldas, are obviously going at 1,000 miles an hour.
So.
You got me intrigued here. I'm like perusing your book because it's on my short list to read it. I wish I could have gotten to it. And now I'm like, I want. See, the thing is, I know I can't ask you. I'm like, tell me. I know I'm missing things in this story, and so I'm just gonna have to go read the book. So.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is I almost left it there because right before we left, we're like, oh, we got to take a picture. So I had the book in my hand and I set it down on the table or on the windowsill somewhere. And then we took a picture, and then I walked out, and you ran it out to me in the driveway. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad you did that because I don't have any reading material for the plane back. So, yeah. Anyway, wow. This is cool. I love having you on, Emily, because you're one of the listeners. Your name is recognizable in the chat room. And, people see you in the conversations in there, but this is what we love doing is just kind of meeting our friends. And, we had Plane on a couple weeks ago, Jonathan, and it's a lot of fun. We've had lots of our listeners on, and you just might see a name scroll by, and you don't know anything about that person. And now you guys know, here's Emily, 1922. There's much more to her and then just an icon and a name, and every one of us have that. And we could all tell our sad stories and our praise reports and all that, but I'm thankful that you would come on and share this. There's a lot more that you do, and I really want people to go to your blog and check that out. And I know that you're going to be, I don't know if I should be saying this, but you're going to be in Ohio. We're going to get to see you there again at the Take on the World conference. We need to plug that. Somebody else I think is going to be there, I'm not sure, is Stand Steel Clothing. And I like mentioning those guys because those guys are nice enough to have us on their ministry partner page. So there's also some really other cool ministries on there. I think the River Winds and some other people on there too. So guys, if you're looking for cool clothing, check out Stand Steel Clothing. I'm pretty sure they're going to be at Take on the World. And Jared and I are going to be at Take on the World. We're looking forward to meeting up with some people. We had such a good time hanging out with people in California. And I didn't realize that Emily, you and Jacqueline, we're going to be leaving so early that day. I thought, we're going to get to hang out longer, but it's okay because I got to hang out in San Diego. But it was we got to meet, of course, our other friends out there. But it was just so short. But it's cool just to kind of to meet each other and to hang out and to have tacos and say, then we got to go our separate ways. We all got our ministries to do wherever we're at, right? So
yeah, we all should be ministers, really.
Yeah.
There's no excuse. You can be in the line at the grocery store, and so.
No. Agreed. But anyway, give us the websites again and
sure.
the name of the book and how you get the book.
it is kind of specific to the gay lifestyle, but it can any type of protocol. And the website is emilylpittsford.com, which I'm trying to spit out. But there is one article called "A Safe Place to Land," and it's specifically made for when you first find out about anything. And so there's a lot of good articles and YouTube videos, because that's what we all do, right? And but yeah, emilylpittsford.com.
Okay.
My
okay,
mother
great.
had go ahead.
Well, no. Also, the name of the book and where they can get the book at, because there's going to be a lot of people listening to this in the
Oh, awesome.
in the podcast and all that. They're going to want to know, so we just want to mention it a few times.
The name of it is A Most Incredible Witness, and Amazon is just the easiest way to get it. You can
Okay.
download it or buy the book.
Okay, cool.
And I think
Very cool. And one thing that we found out when you were up in LA, Emily, is that there's like a voice that reads the book, right? You didn't even know that.
no, I know an iPad and iPhone. Michelle, thank you for that. So I can now read all the books I have, or at least maybe the samples that I have in Kindle.
Right.
Now,
right.
as far as reading, but early it used to be really.
If you like listening to the robot voice, but
Yeah, that's kind of. But hey, it gets it done.
yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
So, but anything else on your heart? I want to say one more thing about the book that I caught immediately when I was on the plane reading the book. I was like, this is written really good. And I meant to ask you about that. How have you always wanted to be an author, or was this is something that you did?
I took a class in high school. I always did arts and crafts. I was always into that. But then I thought I'd take a creative writing course. It was so cool. The first day, the teacher tells us to write this paragraph. So I wrote about these two women in the middle of the night, like 2 in the morning, walking down the street, and the leaves were crunching underneath their feet as they walked. And she handed back all the papers, but mine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? Where'd it go? And did I do something wrong? And all this stuff. And I think even my friend Peachy was sitting next to me. And all of a sudden, Miss Terry stood up there and she said, I want to read this one. And it was mine. And so then that was kind of cool. I always liked to write when I was a kid even. And I talk about on the blog, like my first experience writing was a Dracula story when I was 7, because my dad used to watch all those, it was Elvira in the 70s, Mona Lisa, or 60s. And so that's kind of what I knew at that point. And so I wrote this Dracula story, and it was pretty good. But yeah, in high school and then college too. But my college professors said I drove them crazy because my grammar was so bad. But now we have editors.
So,
and I've gotten better.
Just to be clear, did you say you had a friend named Peachy?
I do.
Okay. I just want to, I didn't know if I was hearing things or if you were glitching out again. That's a different name. So not making fun of the name, but I like it. So
yeah, she fits it too. She's very vivacious.
One more secret from the book that I will reveal is Tim's haircut that you gave him. So immediately I was like, note to self, don't ever let Emily near you with a pair of scissors or buzzers or anything else.
This is not my talent.
Will you tell that story so we can just shut this thing down?
Okay. So he was like 7 or 8 on his way to camp, and he insisted we get a razor. He had this thing, he would grow his hair out long and then get it cut really short. So it was long and he was ready to get it short, and he insisted on getting the razor. So I took it out of the package, and God forbid I read the directions. So I lit it up.
Clippers, right?
Clippers. Yeah, thank you. Clippers. So I, plugged it in, and I went like this, thinking this is going to be cool. It was on the 0 setting. So there was no hair on this kid right here. So, okay, what do you do? So I did everything else like a little bit longer. So it wasn't quite the shaved head look, this kid is in chemotherapy kind of thing. So he had a reverse mohawk for camp.
That's so funny.
He didn't care though. He was the coolest kid. He just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I know. I love that. I love that. Guys, this is a great book. A Most Incredible Witness. I hope you guys check it out. It's really good. It's really easy to read. It's short, and it's written really good too. That really, I really noticed that immediately when I started reading the book. Emily, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. This is not your last time on here. This is just your premiere time. We want to have you back on because there's a lot more to talk about. And, just stay tuned, guys. Emily's going to be back sometime in the future. But
Thanks.
yeah, hey, thank you. But guys, check out don't forget to check out throughtheblack.com. Check us out on Facebook. For anybody who doesn't know, we actually made a movie and we're making more movies, but you can see all that stuff at throughtheblack.com, see what we're doing, how to support us, how to buy the movie, all that stuff. So it's on there. Thanks guys for your support. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and to share the videos. That helps us out a lot to get the word out there about what we're doing.
All right, guys. Thanks for being with us. Emily, it's good to see you again. Everybody else, we'll see you later. Peace.